On the news tonight, world celebrates English language. Nigeria and China stress. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I am Adeola Omokivie. The essence of pedestrian bridges across several expressways in Lagos State cannot be overemphasized. Calls for concern. Tunde Saiki in this report takes a look at some of these bridges almost nearing completion but abandoned.
Some of these bridges can be found along the ever-busy Lagos-Abeokuta area. NTA News gathered that the contract for these bridges were awarded by the federal government for over 2 years, though the contractors mobilized to site to start the construction. But halfway into it, the project...
We have been crossing that there's a road woman has been there the last 2 years.
Some other respondents, however, appealed to the federal government to direct these contractors to go back to site for the benefits of the masses whose purpose the pedestrian bridges were meant to serve.
We pray for the government to do the bridge in time, because by not doing it, you can see the company and the market people that are using this place we are many. You understand? And by leaving it, not doing it, it poses a danger to the life of people.
In Lagos, Tunde Saiki, NTA News.
The Consul General of the People's Republic of China, Mr. Liu Kan, says China will continue to promote and improve the bilateral relations with Nigeria in various sectors of the economy. The Consul General said this at a cultural program and open day activity of the embassy in Lagos. The report.
The Consulate General of China in Lagos says that the establishment of the strategic partnership between Nigeria and China and the in-depth development of bilateral relations serve the fundamental interests of the two countries. He says that China attaches great importance to the development of its ties with Nigeria. With
amity between peoples holds the key to the sound relations between states.
The Consulate General of China organized an open day activity to enable the Nigerian school children to understudy Chinese cultural background, learn how to write and read Chinese language. The school children were taking around many sections of the embassy to see many historical pictures of Nigerian and Chinese leaders, as well as landmark frames from China. The head teacher of one of the schools that benefit.
If we go back to our school now, we see what they've done there. That shows China loves education.
The school children were also taught how to make different artworks.
World English Language Day today. Stakeholders have advocated training and retraining of teachers to cope with the challenges and the emerging trends in the teaching and learning of English language. Jane Ojuku.
A world language, or the lingua franca. It is one of the 6 languages officially used by the United Nations. In commemoration of the importance and benefits of the language, the United Nations set aside April 23rd to be observed at promoting the language and multilingualism as well as cultural diversity.
The awareness is not there that a day has been set aside for a single language day.
I'm not quite aware of the fact that today is a World English Language.
Developments on the subject.
I would advise that such teachers get knowledge of this discipline very, very well.
I use it as a time to create awareness myself.
What do schools put in place to enhance learning of the language?
You need a language laboratory in the college.
We have such clubs like the Press Club, the Literary and Debating Societies.
The advent of fortunately impacts on the usage of English. As a global language observers say, English expands educational and career opportunities of young people, hence the need for in Lagos. NTA News.
And as a follow-up to that report, we have in the studios Professor Segun Awunusi from the University of Lagos. He is a professor of English. Good evening and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, it's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, well, how would you assess the study of English in Nigerian schools?
That's quite interesting. The first is that we must realize that over the ages, over the years, centuries, English has developed second language usage country. In other words, for us, English is not a first language.
Yeah.
We have our own direct challenges.
Okay.
The challenges from our own mother tongues, we have to cope with that. Challenges of the nature of the environment itself, where is English, although it's British non-dependent, is also being challenged by some other Englishes in the environment, and of course the challenges that also arise in terms of quality of teaching and learning.
Okay.
At the level of learning, we're talking of instructional materials. Do we have enough? Are they there? Then are the teachers themselves, are they well trained?
Okay.
One of the sad things that I've noticed over the years, take the pronunciation of English for example. You find over the years that at some point WAEC was testing both perception and production, but later we now just test perception. How can you test all English just in terms of perception, in terms of what you have on paper, not production, not reusage? And that's a shame, but it's true. And it's also, or credit cards in English have been beyond 50%. It then shows that something might be basically wrong either with our system or with the way we teach it, or the materials, the instructional material that we make available.
About the received pronunciation, a lot of people, when they pick the dictionaries, they actually just go for the second transcribed word there. Is that what should be the right thing?
Received pronunciation, I advise you, is that even received pronunciation is a minority accent in England, but it's a minority accent that has the greatest influence. It is a minority accent that the majority want to use.
Okay.
So for able to domesticate that, be honest, I do not think any teacher will think that users of English, particularly at the level of pronunciation, will pronounce exactly in terms of our legal crisis of language usage. The same way we do not sacrifice international intelligibility. So that you then go to England, you are in the US, you are in any English-speaking community, they still understand you. Once we do not sacrifice international intelligibility, then at least we can then say this is standard Nigerian. There are ways that we have domesticated English, and that's just our environment. But once we domesticate in such a way that we do not break the basic rules of grammar,
it appears that most school children in Nigeria have difficulty in speaking and writing correct English. What, in your opinion, is the problem?
First, there's no secondary reinforcement. A little kid in England goes to school, he leaves the school, then there is a secondary reinforcement. Every other person is speaking English. A kid in Nigeria just spent a few hours in school, he goes back, all around everybody speaking either pidgin or Nigerian language, so there is no basic reinforcement. Two, there are certain instructional materials that kids can take home and use, but I'm afraid they are not using quite a number of them. Three, the area of educational television is also glued to the television, and many a time, even when they see bad uses of English on television, they sometimes wrongly think that is the correct form, which I'm afraid is not most of the time. Time, and we have good books, good other good instructional materials, we'll get there.
Okay, would you advise children to use the American form of English instead of you're saying, I'm Ghana?
It's something very funny that in the last 25 years, there has been a gradual Americanization of British English in England.
Okay.
If that assault takes place in England, which is a native speaker country, a lot of Americanisms, they are not even conscious of the fact that they are using Americanisms. Very many. In Nigeria, we get to London, for example, a simple thing is, okay, you talk of a flat, you talk of a duplex here, okay, you talk in England, you're detached. So there are quite a number of Americanisms that we have demonstrated are part of our usage. Okay. But in terms of pronunciation, well, not much of it. I feel a few Nigerians to pronounce 88 for 88. Nigerian English is basically British non-dependent, and that is what we should encourage. That is what. But if people have American background and they are consistent, examining bodies will also score those right.
Okay.
But there must be consistency. But you cannot be just shifting between accents.
Okay, Prof, do you think that ICT has any negative effect in the use of English among students in Nigeria?
What is available is that there are quite a number of websites now that you can access quite a number of materials that can help pronunciation, grammar, lexical syntactics, all of them. But of course, they must also help students to identify websites that they can use that could contribute to the quality of language to speak. So ICT, yes, may be positive, may also be negative, but I think what is important is access to the positive sites on the web.
Okay, can you then say that there is appropriate manpower in terms of teachers and teaching techniques?
I'm afraid no. But the English language even becomes more problematic. There are many teachers in our schools teaching English who just masquerade as teachers of English with very minimal knowledge of English. The training is once you just say, okay, I can speak English, or sometimes even a battery of English, or they just let you loose on the class teaching children. I've seen that in many primary schools. So, but highly qualified teachers of English, I'm afraid there's still a possibility. We need to
English language.
I do profess English, yes, thank you.
Okay. How is the response to studying English? Will it help in getting enough manpower to teach English language? The students really put in for English, to study English in the higher institutions?
Yeah, quite a number. There has been an improvement over the years. Universities also have use of English program, which are university-wide. Some universities are also experimenting with university-wide reading project programs and all of that. With that, yes, you will say the number is increased over the years. But of course, the problem is that the increase in number, would it also match the increase in school enrollment? I'm afraid no. So we still need to do more. And universities can also not admit beyond, I said, because there are NUC guidelines in terms of science, arts ratio, how many students you can be there. So all of those are there. They are intervening variables.
Okay, Prof. Now let's talk about the curriculum.
You see, I think it's adequate. It's good. It's good for English. The only thing is that people who operate, people who use those things to teach, I think that's where we have a problem. Okay. I don't have a problem with the curriculum. I've seen the curriculum quite a number of times. I think what NERDC has fashioned out is good.
Okay, and lastly, Prof, challenges that needs to be addressed, and is government doing enough to help English language?
I'm afraid no. There was a time when I was president of the Nigerian English Studies Association, we called for the establishment of a Center of Excellence of English Studies in Nigeria. Just like you have French village, you have Arabic village, and then you also have Nigerian language villages. And whereas the problem is English, highly qualified teachers of English in the country. If we do that, yes, I'm afraid those are things we have to appeal to government to look into.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for coming on the news and enlightening us more on English language and its studies.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You're watching NTA2 News at 7. When we return, Transition Committee inaugurated. These and more after the break.
StarTime Solar Phone now arriving. Artistically designed for comfort, its ergonomic curves offering the perfect touch in your hands. It's extremely slim at only 8mm. Use the 13-megapixel camera to capture all your precious moments. Enjoy the gallery with a 5-inch HD display and multi-touch screen.
Rich, inhuman and natural.